Codependency is often interspersed with self-sabotage. I mean, we've already talked about how, abandoning yourself for someone else and somebody else's purpose is already some degree of like self-sabotage. But here's how I've noticed relationships when people haven't prioritized healing, how their codependent relationships take a pattern. So they get into the codependent relationship. You have this person who's constantly willing to be the giver, the provider, the nurturer, the carer, the person who's valued only when the other person does better, right? In all of those cases of giver, provider, nurturer, carer, their jobs will be invalid if there was if no one was there to care, nurture, support, and provide for.
Right.
So already this person is now saying, my identity comes from how I do something for someone else. This relationship will continue until the codependency, for whatever reason, becomes painful enough that it ends, because codependency is not designed as a relationship to be sustainable. But when it ends, this is what's really interesting that I've noticed with a lot of codependents. Sometimes they will attract a partner into their lives who wants to show up for them, who wants to be able to support them, who wants to nurture them, who wants to be able to like see them. So in essence, a partner who's probably or possibly a little more secure. But these codependents are so unused to getting that level of love. They're so unused to getting that level of recognition, support. They're only used to giving it. And their belief is that I'm just not worthy enough to receive.
Right.
I can only provide when I give. So much so that when they attract that person into their life who's willing to give it to them, they just cannot receive. And so they'll find their egos tend to find that person unattractive, find them too needy, and more than anything, to find them suspicious. Right. To be like, I wonder what their intention is. Why is this person giving me so much love? Why is this person trying to show up for me? This is weird. I wonder what their intention is. What are they looking for here? What do they want from me? Right. And that's how they'll push that relationship away to end it, and unconsciously sabotage it, cut that out, so that then they can go back to a codependent relationship where their ego feels at home in the usual pattern. And I want to bring that up because a lot of people may not actually have been aware that they sit in that cycle of doing it. And that cycle involves us needing to break it based on, healing that we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. You literally just said the story of my life pretty much just now, because that's exactly like that pattern that I was in too for myself, and I think it can be, you're not recognizing it, because I made a post about this the other day that talked a little bit about like, people think that like healthy relationships are boring and stuff like that. And that's because that emotional chaos and like that working for love is not present in healthy relationships. You literally just show up and you are yourself, and that's enough in those types of relationships. So then we say things like, I didn't feel the chemistry. I just didn't feel a spark. Like I didn't know that chemistry that you're feeling is trauma. Like that's not really, that butterflies in your stomach, that's not a good thing. We need to kind of erase that from our heads. It's just triggering a lot of our subconscious wounds that we have that we just haven't faced. So even going back to what it was that you were saying before about having to distance yourself, go through that healing process alone in solitude. Once you can take that time to really do that, you're going to open your mind to actually hearing. You're going to open your mind to actually hearing all of the messages that you need to receive and being able to become a witness to yourself. I think that's what's really important. I think when you take that time to really distance, you figure out what your capacity is. A lot of us don't have a threshold. We're just giving. We're just conforming, but like we don't have that meter that says after this point, I'm not giving no more,
Right.
So I think that it's super, super, super important. So I love that you even brought that aspect of it up as well.
Yeah. And I find that what's interesting, as you talked about, is the separation from the coping mechanism shows us how big the coping mechanism is in our life.
Right.
And so that's why, sitting with the self becomes so important, because you start to reflect within as to how attached am I really to this sense of like validation, recognition, approval, guidance, or whatever that I'm getting from the outside. How attached am I to being needed by someone?
Right.
And so for those of you who are like, how do I know if I'm in a codependent relationship, or how do I know if it's bad for me? How do I know if showing up for someone is bad? Because, being good for other people is a good thing. This is the best way, I think, to recognize it, is to actually look within yourself and say, but is it good for you?
Right.
you actually feeling the good and not just feeling it from your ego, trying to say, yeah, I'm feeling good because people are sending me letters and saying I'm great, or like my partner says, you know, I'm so selfless. But to actually sit and look at, what is your body going through? Does your body feel nourished? Does your body feel like it's receiving? Do you feel like you're getting love? Do you feel like you have love within you?
Right.
Do you feel drained, fatigued? All of those things are such a good way to evaluate, you know, am I actually in this place where I'm giving and receiving, or am I just in a place where it's a dominant sign of like one or the other?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It goes back to that capacity that we talked about. Like, what is your threshold? If you've been in this relationship with this person and it's mirroring the lack of love that you've been able to give to yourself, you need that time in solitude to figure out how you're going to be able to show up in any relationship. It doesn't even have to be romantic, because the codependency, I know for me, it didn't just show up in my romantic relationships. It showed up on my job, people pleasing, staying there after hours because I want to be looked at this like a good employee and stuff like that. And it was not healthy. It was not healthy. And all it does is it kind of just, it boils over. You suppress your needs so much, they don't just get up and like, all right, well, let's go somewhere else. Let's go to a different person. They stay there. And it gets to that point where a lot of people have to kind of like hit that rock bottom, or like they have to go through something that's really, really traumatic for them to start to look at themselves. I can't tell you guys what I want for you, because you have to want something for yourself. But I know that was probably one of the hardest things, that I wasn't really able to, I was ignoring the red flags, I was ignoring the signs, and it took me getting really, really, really hurt in that relationship for me to say, all right, I got some work to do. It can't be these other people. It has to be me.